The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with the usual noise of 1,000 different voices. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy sat in their assigned sections, arguing about trade routes and border disputes. The massive circular hall stretched up toward a glass dome that showed the stars beyond. Floating translation devices hummed overhead, turning the chaos of hundreds of languages into something that made sense. In the human section, 12 people sat quietly in simple gray uniforms. They had no fancy decorations or bright colors like the other species, no glowing crystals or flowing robes, just plain clothing and calm faces. Most of the other aliens barely noticed them anymore. The humans had been part of the council for over 100 years, but they rarely spoke up during debates. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the front row of the human section. She was a middle-aged woman with short brown hair and tired eyes. Today felt different to her, though she could not explain why. Maybe it was the way the Altarians were shouting about mining rights again. Maybe it was how the Zenth Collective kept interrupting everyone else. Or maybe it was just the feeling that nothing ever really got solved in this place. A small device on her wrist vibrated softly. Elena looked down and saw a message waiting. The sender was listed as Terra Prime Command. Her heart skipped a beat. Messages from Earth's highest levels were rare and always important. She touched the device with one finger and read the text that appeared. The message was short, just a few lines. But those few lines changed everything. Elena read it twice to make sure she understood correctly. Then she closed the message and sat still for a moment. Around her, the other human representatives continued listening to the debate about water, rights in the Proxima system. None of them had received the same message. That would come later, through proper channels. The Vrex representative was speaking now, waving his forearms wildly as he complained about shipping delays. The crystalline entity in the next section made a sound like wind chimes, which the translators turned into words about frequency disruptions. Elena had heard similar complaints hundreds of times before. She stood up slowly. The movement was quiet, but somehow it caught attention. Maybe because humans so rarely stood during sessions unless they were asked direct questions. The debate continued around her, but a few nearby aliens turned to look. Elena walked to the center of the human section where a small speaking platform waited. She pressed a button that sent a request to the council chairman. Within seconds, a soft tone played through the chamber, and Chairman Zefix's voice boomed from the speakers. The chair recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of the Terran Federation, Zefix announced. His translator made his natural clicking sounds into perfect standard Galactic. The chamber did not go completely quiet, but the noise level dropped. Elena stepped up to the speaking platform and looked out at the sea of different faces. Scaled faces, feathered faces, faces made of living metal. Some had eyes like hers. Others had no eyes at all. "Thank you, Chairman Zefix," Elena said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I have an announcement to make on behalf of the Terran Federation." Now the chamber did go quiet. Announcements from humans were rare. Usually they just voted on proposals and gave quiet advice when asked. Elena could feel hundreds of different types of eyes watching her. "The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately," Elena said. "We thank the Council for the past century of cooperation and wish all member species success in their future endeavors." For a moment, nobody moved. The words hung in the air like smoke. Then the chamber exploded into noise. Chairman Zefix's voice cut through the chaos. "Ambassador Vasquez, surely you misspoke. The Terran Federation cannot simply withdraw from the Council. There are procedures, protocols, debates that must be held." Elena shook her head. "There has been no mistake, Chairman. Earth's decision is final. We are withdrawing from all Council activities and agreements." The Altarian representative jumped to his feet. "This is outrageous. You cannot simply leave. What about our trade agreements? What about the mining contracts?" All existing agreements will be honored until their natural expiration dates, Elena replied. No new agreements will be signed. A dozen voices started shouting at once. The Zenth wanted to know about shipping routes. The Morphic states demanded answers about research partnerships. The insectoid hive clusters made a buzzing sound that the translators could not properly convert. Through it all, Elena stood calmly at her platform. Behind her, the other 11 human representatives had also stood up. They moved with quiet efficiency, gathering their few belongings and checking their personal devices. "Why?" Chairman Zephyx asked. His voice was louder now, almost desperate. "What have we done? What do you want us to change?" Elena looked at him for a long moment. Zephyx was a proud being from a warrior species. His people had ruled their sector for thousands of years before joining the council. He was not used to being ignored or dismissed. "This is not about punishment or anger," Elena said. "Earth has simply decided to pursue a different path. But the council needs every member species," the Vrex representative called out. "We are stronger together than apart." "Perhaps," Elena said. "We wish you well in proving that." She stepped down from the platform and walked toward the exit. The other humans followed her in a neat line. They moved like they had practiced this moment many times, though none of the aliens had ever seen them rehearse. "You cannot just leave," someone shouted. Elena could not tell who. "We need to discuss this. We need to negotiate." Elena stopped at the chamber's main exit and turned back one last time. The noise had grown louder, not softer. Representatives were standing at their seats, some pointing at the humans, others arguing with each other. "Goodbye," Elena said simply. Then she walked through the doors. The other humans followed her without looking back. Their footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the chamber. Behind them, the noise continued to grow. Voices rose in anger, confusion, and fear. But no human voice joined the chaos. In the human section of the chamber, 12 empty seats sat silent. The small flags that marked each species' territory still flew overhead, but the Terran Federation's simple blue and green banner looked somehow different now. Smaller, more distant. Chairman Zephyx called for order, but order was slow to come. Too many questions filled the air, too many concerns and complaints and demands for explanations that would never come. The humans had spoken their last words to the Galactic Council. They had done it without anger or threats or dramatic speeches. They had simply said goodbye and left. In the corridor outside, Elena and her team walked toward their transport ship. Their footsteps were the only sound they made. Behind them, the greatest gathering of intelligence in the galaxy struggled to understand what had just happened. The humans had been part of the Council for a century. They had helped solve countless problems and prevented numerous wars. They had been quiet, reliable, and surprisingly effective at finding solutions everyone could accept. Now they were gone, and for the first time in decades, the Galactic Council chamber felt truly alien to everyone inside it. 3 weeks passed after the humans left the Council chambers. At first, many alien species thought the withdrawal was just a negotiating trick. They expected the humans to return with demands or conditions. But no messages came from Earth. No demands. No conditions. Just silence. The first real problem started with the Kepler Mining Consortium. It was a huge operation that pulled rare metals from asteroids in 12 different star systems. The metals were needed for everything from spaceship engines to communication, devices. Half the galaxy depended on those materials. Director Vox of the consortium was a Zenthi with bright orange skin and 4 eyes. He had run mining operations for 60 years and had never seen anything like what happened that Tuesday morning. He was reviewing production reports when his assistant rushed into his office. "Sir, we have a problem," the assistant said. "All the human-operated facilities have gone dark." Vox looked up from his reports. "What do you mean, gone dark?" "They stopped responding to communications this morning. All of them." Every single human-run mining platform, refinery, and processing station. Vox felt his stomach drop. The humans ran about 40% of all consortium operations. They were good at it, too. Their facilities always met production goals and rarely had accidents. Have you tried emergency channels? Yes, sir. We get the same automated message every time. The assistant activated a wall screen. A simple text message appeared in standard Galactic script. This facility is no longer operational. Operations have ceased permanently. Please seek alternative arrangements. End message. That's it? Vox asked. No explanation? No warning? That's all, sir. Every human facility is broadcasting the same message. Vox leaned back in his chair. 40% of their operations had just vanished overnight. Send ships to the nearest facilities. Maybe their communications are just broken. But the ships found something worse than broken communications. The human facilities were completely empty. Not just of people, but of everything useful. All the important equipment had been removed. All the data files had been erased. All the spare parts had been taken away. The humans had not just left. They had stripped their facilities bare and taken everything with them. The news spread quickly through the business networks. Within days, similar reports came from everywhere. Human shipping companies had stopped all operations. Human-run spaceports had closed their doors. Human agricultural worlds had stopped food exports. The Vrex Mercantile Union called an emergency meeting. Representatives from dozens of trading companies gathered in their headquarters on Vrex Prime. The mood was angry and scared. This is economic warfare, declared Merchant Prince Kill. His people controlled shipping routes throughout the Outer Rim. The humans are trying to force us to accept their terms. What terms? Asked Director Vox. They have not made any demands. They have not even answered our messages. Then we make them answer, Chill said. We send military ships to their facilities and take what we need. Others agreed. The humans had to be taught that they could not simply abandon their responsibilities. They had contracts. They had duties to the galactic community. But when the Vrex sent ships to human facilities, they found something strange. The facilities were not defended. There were no human warships in the area, no weapons platforms, no shields. The installations just sat in space, completely unprotected. The Vrex ships docked without any trouble. But inside the facilities, they found empty corridors and bare rooms. Every piece of valuable equipment had been removed. Every computer had been wiped clean. Even the furniture was gone. Captain Zilf of the Vrex Navy stood in what used to be the main control room of a mining station. The room was perfectly clean but completely empty. No chairs, no control panels, no screens. Just empty mounting brackets on the walls where equipment used to be. They took everything, his engineering officer reported. Even the light fixtures, even the air recycling systems. How long would this take? Zilf asked. The engineer looked around the empty room. To remove everything this completely? Months, maybe a year of careful planning. Zilf felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not decided to leave 3 weeks ago when they walked out of the council chambers. They had been planning this for much longer, maybe years. The same reports came from everywhere. Human facilities across the galaxy had been systematically emptied, not destroyed, not damaged, just carefully stripped of anything useful. The humans had taken their equipment and left behind empty shells. Trade routes that had worked smoothly for decades began to break down. Human shipping companies had connected distant worlds and carried goods that other species found unprofitable to transport. Now those connections were gone. The crystalline entities who lived in the galactic core sent a message to the Council. It was the first time they had communicated in months. The message was short but troubling. Human logistics networks were the only reliable way to transport our people between star systems. Without them, we must limit travel to emergency situations only. We regret this inconvenience. Similar messages came from other species. The insectoid hive clusters had depended on human-designed shipping containers that kept their delicate larvae safe during transport. The gas giant dwellers had used human atmospheric processors to create breathable environments on solid worlds. Chairman Zephyx called emergency sessions almost every day. The council chambers buzzed with angry voices and desperate plans. But every solution they discussed had the same problem. It required human technology, or human knowledge, or human cooperation. "We must contact Earth directly," the Altarian representative demanded. "We must demand they honor their obligations." But all attempts to contact Earth received the same polite automated response. "The Terran Federation is currently focused on internal development. We are not accepting communications regarding council business. Thank you for your understanding." The Morphic states tried a different approach. They sent a diplomatic ship to the edge of human space with an offer of increased trade benefits if the humans would return to the council. The ship waited at the border for 3 days before receiving a response. "Your offer is appreciated but declined. Please respect Terran Federation borders and seek solutions within your existing capabilities. Safe travels." That was all. No negotiations. No counteroffers, no anger or threats, just polite refusal and a suggestion that the aliens solve their own problems. By the end of the first month, the economic damage was spreading. Worlds that had imported human food were facing shortages. Space stations that had used human power systems were running on emergency reserves. Mining operations were shutting down because they could not replace specialized human equipment. The aliens began to realize something that terrified them. The humans had not just been another member species of the Council, they had been the invisible foundation that held much of galactic civilization together. Their quiet efficiency and reliable service had become so normal that no one had noticed how much they all depended on it. Now that foundation was gone, and the cracks were starting to show everywhere. Admiral Thrak of the Thrakari Dominion was not a patient being. His people were warriors who had conquered 17 star systems through strength and courage. When problems arose, they solved them with force. The human withdrawal was just another problem that needed a military solution. "They think they can hold the galaxy hostage," Thrak told his fleet commanders. "They think we will beg and plead for their return. They are wrong." The Admiral's plan was simple. The Thrakari would take control of the abandoned human facilities in the Proxima sector. These facilities were valuable mining and refining operations that the humans had simply left behind. If the humans wanted to play games, the Thrakari would call their bluff. "Sir," his intelligence officer said during the briefing, "our scouts report that the facilities appear to be completely undefended. No ships, no weapons, no shields. Nothing." "Of course they are undefended," Thrak replied. "The humans are trying to make us think they do not care about losing them. But these facilities are worth billions of credits. No species abandons that kind of wealth without a fight." The Thrakari fleet approached the first mining platform on a Tuesday morning. It was a massive structure built into an asteroid that was rich with rare metals. The platform could process enough material in 1 day to power a small city for a year. Commander Zell led the boarding party. She had fought in a dozen battles and captured enemy ships before. But this felt different. The mining platform was not trying to flee or fight back. It just sat in space, silent and still. "No response to our hails," reported her communications officer. "No movement from the station. It's like no one is home." "Then we go inside and take it," Zell said. "Prepare. Boarding shuttles." The Thrakari shuttles docked with the platform without any trouble. The airlocks opened normally. The artificial gravity was working. The lights were on. But as soon as the boarding parties stepped inside, they knew something was wrong. The corridors were clean and empty. Not just empty of people, but empty of everything. The walls had mounting brackets where equipment used to be attached, but the equipment was gone. The floors had power outlets, but nothing was plugged into them. Even the emergency supply lockers had been cleaned out. "Where is everything?" one of the soldiers asked. Commander Zell did not have an answer. She had expected to find abandoned equipment that the Thrakari could use. Maybe some humans who had stayed behind to defend the facility. Instead, she found empty rooms and silent corridors. The mining platform's main control center was the size of a small auditorium. It should have been filled with computers, control panels, and monitoring equipment. Instead, the room was completely bare. Even the flooring had been removed, leaving only the basic metal deck plating. They took everything. The engineering, specialist reported. Every computer, every control system, every piece of mining equipment, even the backup power generators are gone. How long would it take to strip a facility this completely? Zell asked. The engineer looked around the empty control center. For a facility this size, months of careful work. This was not done in a hurry. The same report came from every facility the Thrakari boarded. The humans had not just abandoned their operations. They had methodically removed every piece of valuable equipment and left behind empty shells of buildings. But Admiral Thrak was not ready to give up. If the humans wanted to play harder, the Thrakari would play harder too. He ordered his fleet to proceed directly to human space and demand answers. "We will go to their colonies," Thrak declared. "We will make them explain themselves, and if they refuse, we will take what we need by force." The Thrakari fleet of 30 warships crossed into human space 3 days later. They expected to find human defense fleets waiting for them. They expected warnings, threats, or demands to leave. Instead, they found something that disturbed them much more than enemy ships would have. They found nothing at all. The human border. Stations were still there, but they showed no response to the Thrakari fleet. No hails, no warnings, no movement. The stations just continued their normal operations as if the alien warships did not exist. "Are they scanning us?" Thrak asked his sensor officer. "Unknown, sir. If they are, we cannot detect it. They are not using any scanning methods we recognize. Are their weapons powered up?" "We cannot tell, sir. We are not detecting any energy signatures that match known weapon types." Thrak felt confused and angry. How was he supposed to fight an enemy that would not even acknowledge his existence? "Signal the lead border station. Demand they respond to our presence." The communications officer tried for several minutes before reporting failure. "No response, sir. They are not even acknowledging our signals." "Then we board the station," Thrak decided. "If they want to ignore us, we will make them pay attention." But boarding the human station proved impossible. The Thrakari shuttles could approach the station normally, but when they tried to dock, the airlocks would not open. The shuttles could attach to the docking ports, but the station systems would not interface with them. "It's like the station does not recognize our shuttles as valid ships," the shuttle pilot reported. "The docking systems are active, but they will not respond to us." Thrak ordered his ships to fire warning shots near the station. The powerful plasma bolts lit up space around the human facility, but the station showed no reaction. No shields went up, no weapons powered on, no response of any kind. "Sir," the sensor officer said quietly, "I am detecting movement inside the station. There are definitely people in there, but they are not responding to our presence at all." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Thrak felt helpless. He had brought 30 warships into enemy space, and the enemy was simply ignoring him. It was like being in a fight where the other person would not acknowledge that a fight was happening. "Move to the next system," he ordered. "Find a human facility that will respond to us." But the same thing happened at every human installation they approached. The facilities were clearly occupied and operational, but they showed no reaction to the Thrakari fleet. No threats, no negotiations, no acknowledgement of any kind. After a week of this strange non-confrontation, Thrak received new orders from the Dominion leadership. Other alien fleets were reporting similar experiences. The Altarian Navy had tried to force their way into human space and been completely ignored. The Zenth military had attempted to occupy a human research station and found it impossible to interface with human technology. The humans were not fighting back. They were doing something much more disturbing. They were acting like the rest of the galaxy no longer existed. "Sir," Thrax's intelligence officer said during their final briefing, "I have been analyzing the data from our incursion. I believe the humans have been preparing for this withdrawal for years, possibly decades." "What do you mean?" Thrax asked. "Every human facility we encountered has been modified to operate completely independently. They do not need alien technology, alien materials, or alien support. They have created a completely self-sufficient civilization." The intelligence officer activated a wall display showing their route through human space. "More importantly, they have designed their systems to be incompatible with all known alien technology. We cannot dock with their stations because our ships use different standards. We cannot hack their computers because they use unknown encryption. We cannot even talk to them because they have stopped monitoring alien communication frequencies." Thrax studied the display. "You are saying they have deliberately made it impossible for us to interact with them?" "Yes, sir. This was not a sudden decision. This was a carefully planned separation that has been in development for a very long time." The Admiral felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the room. The humans had not just left the Galactic Council. They had prepared to leave the galactic community entirely, and they had done it so thoroughly that the rest of the galaxy could not force them to return. The Thrakari fleet returned home with empty hands and troubling questions. If the humans could simply ignore the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, what did that say about the balance of power? And if they had been planning this separation for years, what else had they been preparing for? The humans had won a war without firing a single shot. They had defeated multiple alien fleets without even acknowledging that a conflict existed. It was the strangest victory in galactic history, and it left everyone else wondering what other surprises the quiet human species had been preparing in silence. 6 months after the humans left, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Half the seats were empty. Some species had withdrawn from the council entirely. Others had stopped sending representatives. A few had simply gone silent and no longer responded to communications at all. Chairman Zefix looked out at the sparse gathering of delegates and felt old. His people lived for 300 years, but he had aged more in the past 6 months than in the previous decade. The weight of watching galactic civilization crumble was heavier than any burden he had carried before. "The chair recognizes Representative Korth of the Zenth Collective," Zefix announced, though his voice lacked its former authority. Korth stood slowly. The Zenth leader's usually bright purple skin had faded to a dull gray. His people were traders and diplomats, but there was little left to trade and few left to negotiate with. "Fellow delegates," Korth began, "I regret to inform the Council that the Zenth Collective is formally declaring war on the Morphic States. Their illegal occupation of the Cygnus mining system cannot be tolerated." The announcement should have caused an uproar. 6 months ago, it would have led to hours of debate and desperate attempts at mediation. Now, only a few delegates even bothered to look up from their personal devices. "The Morphic States are not here to respond to your declaration," Zefix pointed out. "They withdrew from the council last month." "Then we will respond through military action," Korth replied. "The time for talk has ended." Representative Vash of the Altarian hegemony laughed bitterly. "Good luck with that. The Morphic States have allied with the Outer Rim Confederation. Your war just became a lot bigger than you planned." Zefix tried to maintain order, but his heart was not in it. The same pattern had repeated itself dozens of times over the past months. Old disputes that had been peacefully managed for decades were exploding into open conflicts. Trade disagreements were becoming border wars. Resource-sharing agreements were dissolving into accusations and threats. The humans had been the galaxy's mediators. They had a gift for finding solutions that worked for everyone involved. When the Zenth and Morphic States had their first dispute over mining rights 30 years ago, Human negotiators had spent months crafting an agreement that satisfied both sides. The agreement had been renewed 4 times without problems. Now, with no human mediators available, the old dispute had reignited with fury that surprised everyone. Both sides claimed the other had violated the original agreement. Both sides demanded exclusive access to the valuable mining system, and both sides refused to accept any compromise. Perhaps we could invite neutral species to mediate, suggested Representative Yill of the Kepler Union. Who? Korth asked. The crystalline entities have not left their home systems in 4 months. The hive clusters refuse to communicate with anyone. Half the council has dissolved into civil wars. It was true. The galaxy was fragmenting at an alarming rate. The Vrex Mercantile Union had split into 3 competing factions when they could not agree on how to handle the economic crisis. The Spiral Arm Federation had collapsed entirely when their member worlds stopped honoring mutual defense agreements. The most disturbing loss was the crystalline entities. They were ancient beings who had been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. Their technology was centuries ahead of most other species, and their wisdom had guided the Council through many difficult decisions. But 3 months ago, they had sent a final message to the Council. It was broadcast in their musical language, which the translators converted into standard galactic script. The harmonious frequencies have been disrupted beyond repair. The human speakers were the only ones who could communicate without causing resonance chaos in our collective mind. We must retreat to our core worlds to prevent permanent damage to our consciousness. We regret this necessity and hope for eventual restoration of peaceful contact. The translation had been confusing, but the meaning was clear. The crystalline entities could not handle the chaotic thoughts and emotions of the other species without human interpreters to help them filter the mental noise. They had isolated themselves completely rather than risk psychological damage. The insectoid hive clusters had given a simpler explanation for their withdrawal. The humans understood swarmthink. They knew how to speak to one mind that was also millions of minds. Other species cause thought pain when they try to communicate with us. We go home now. Zephix had tried to reach out to Earth directly, hoping to negotiate some kind of limited human involvement in galactic affairs, but every attempt received the same automated response. The Terran Federation is currently focused on internal development. We are not accepting communications regarding council business. We wish all species success in their independent endeavors. The response was polite but final. The humans were not angry with the rest of the galaxy. They had not withdrawn out of spite or revenge. They had simply decided that galactic civilization was not worth their continued participation. That might have been the most painful part of the whole situation. If the humans had been angry, the other species could have apologized and tried to make amends. If the humans had made demands, the council could have negotiated. But the humans had offered no path back to their previous relationship. They had simply walked away. The economic consequences continued to worsen. Without human shipping networks, trade between distant regions became expensive and unreliable. Without human agricultural exports, several worlds were facing food shortages. Without human manufactured goods, technological development had slowed across the galaxy. But the social consequences were even worse. The humans had been teachers, advisors, and problem solvers. When species had conflicts, they went to human mediators. When they faced technical challenges, they consulted human experts. When they needed someone to organize complex multi-species projects, they asked humans to manage them. Now, without human guidance, every small problem became a major crisis. Species that had worked together for decades found themselves unable to cooperate. Projects that had been running smoothly for years ground to a halt when no one could coordinate between different groups. The Galactic Emergency Response Network had collapsed completely. It used to coordinate disaster relief efforts across the galaxy, rushing aid to worlds hit by natural disasters or other emergencies. The network had been designed and managed by human administrators who understood how to work with hundreds of different species and cultures. When Kepler-7 was hit by massive earthquakes 6 weeks ago, the response was chaotic and insufficient. Different species sent incompatible aid supplies. Rescue teams could not coordinate their efforts because they could not agree on command structures. Medical supplies were sent to the wrong locations because no one understood the planet's distribution. Networks. Thousands of beings died who could have been saved if the old response system had still been working. The humans would have had relief efforts organized and deployed within hours. Without them, it took days just to figure out who was supposed to be in charge. "We need to face reality," Representative Vash said during the council session. "The galactic community is falling apart. Maybe it is time to consider whether the council itself should be dissolved." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Galactic Council had existed for over 1,500 years. It had survived wars, disasters, and countless crises. But it had never survived the loss of its most competent members. "The humans built more than we realized," Chairman Zefix said quietly. "They built the invisible structures that held us all together. And when they left, they took those structures with them." Outside the council chambers, the galaxy continued its slide toward chaos. Trade routes were closing. Communication networks were failing. Old alliances were dissolving while new conflicts erupted. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, human ships were heading toward unexplored regions, carrying a civilization that had decided the rest of the galaxy was not worth saving. The humans had not destroyed galactic civilization. They had simply removed their support and let everyone else discover how much they had been depending on that quiet, reliable assistance. The collapse was not dramatic or violent. It was just a slow, steady breakdown of everything that had made the galaxy work. And the worst part was knowing that somewhere out there the humans were building something new and better, while everyone else struggled with the ruins of what they had left behind. 1 year had passed since Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. The Great Hall that once housed 1,000 representatives from across the galaxy now echoed with empty silence most days. When sessions were held, at all, fewer than 200 delegates attended. Chairman Zefix sat alone in his office, staring out at the space traffic around the council station. There was much less traffic now. Many of the regular diplomatic ships no longer made their scheduled runs. Several species had stopped participating in galactic affairs entirely. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his office. Zefix sighed and activated the door controls. His aide, a young Altarian named Kess, entered with a data pad in her hands. "Sir, I have the final report on the Spiral Arm territories," Kess said. Her voice was tired. Everyone sounded tired these days. "How bad is it?" Zefix asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. 14 systems have gone completely dark. No responses to communications, no trade activity, no diplomatic contact. The Kepler Union estimates that 7 of those systems are experiencing complete governmental collapse. Zefix took the data pad and scrolled through the report. Names of worlds he had visited, species he had worked with for decades, all reduced to lines of text marked as status unknown or communication lost. "What about the Vrex situation?" he asked. "The 3 Vrex factions are still fighting each other. The death toll has reached 40,000. Refugee ships are heading to any system that will accept them. But most worlds are too overwhelmed with their own problems to provide aid." The Vrex Civil War was just one of many conflicts that had erupted in the past year. Without human mediators to help resolve disputes, every disagreement had escalated into violence. The humans had possessed a unique talent for understanding what each species really needed and finding ways to give everyone enough to avoid fighting. "Any word from the crystalline entities?" Kess shook her head. Still no response. "Our xenopsychology experts believe they have entered some kind of protective hibernation state. They may not emerge for decades." The loss of the crystalline entities was devastating. They had been the galaxy's memory, preserving knowledge and wisdom from thousands of civilizations over millions of years. Their libraries contained scientific discoveries, cultural treasures, and historical records that could not be found anywhere else. But without human translators who understood their unique form of collective consciousness, the crystalline entities could not safely interact with other species. The chaotic thoughts and emotions of panicked aliens caused them physical pain and mental confusion. "Sir," Kess said carefully, "there is one more thing. We received a request from a joint delegation of surviving council members. They want to attempt direct contact with Earth again." Zephyx looked up from the data pad. "Who is backing this delegation?" "The Altarian hegemony, what is left of the Zenth Collective, the Outer Rim Confederation, and, surprisingly, the Thrakari Dominion. They believe that if they approach as a unified group and offer significant concessions, the humans might agree to limited re-engagement." "What kind of concessions?" Kess consulted her notes. "Complete human autonomy in their territory preferred, trading status, seats on the Council Security Committee, and full veto power over any council decisions that affect human interests." Zephyx almost laughed. A year ago, such an offer would have been considered outrageous. The humans had never asked for special privileges or veto powers. They had been content to participate as equals and offer their assistance when needed. Now, desperate alien species were offering them powers that no single species had ever possessed in the Council's history. And the humans' response? The same automated message they have sent for the past year. "The Terran Federation is currently focused on internal development. We are not accepting communications regarding Council business." The delegation had been formed 3 months ago. They had sent increasingly desperate messages to Earth, offering trade deals, territorial concessions, and promises of reformed Council procedures. Every message received the same polite but final rejection. Some alien leaders had convinced themselves that the automated responses proved the humans were not really in control of their own government. They theorized that some human faction had seized power and was holding the rest of humanity prisoner. It was easier to believe that than to accept that the humans had simply chosen to abandon galactic civilization entirely. But intelligence reports from the borders of human space told a different story. Long-range sensors detected massive construction projects in human systems. New ships were being built, unlike anything in the existing databases. Entire planets were being terraformed using unknown technologies. The humans were not hiding or retreating. They were growing and expanding, but in directions that had nothing to do with the rest of the galaxy. "Sir," Kess said quietly, "the delegation has requested permission to travel to the edge of human space. They want to wait there until the humans agree to meet with them. And if the humans never agree, they are prepared to wait indefinitely." Zephyx set down the datapad and walked to his window. The view outside showed the same stars that had shown on the formation of the Galactic Council 1,500 years ago. But the civilization that had grown up around those stars was dying. It was not a dramatic death. There were no great battles or catastrophic disasters. The galaxy was simply forgetting how to work together. Species that had cooperated for centuries were rediscovering old prejudices and territorial instincts. Trade networks were collapsing. Scientific research had slowed to a crawl. Cultural exchange had almost stopped entirely. The humans had been the glue that held it all together. They had the patience to work through complex negotiations. They had the wisdom to find solutions that satisfied everyone involved. They had the technical skills to build systems that different species could use together. Most importantly, they had the long-term thinking to plan for the future rather than just solving immediate problems. While other species focused on quarterly profits or election cycles, the humans thought in terms of decades and centuries. They built infrastructure that would last, created institutions that would endure, and made decisions based on what would be best for everyone in the long run. Now that long-term perspective was gone, Every species was focused on immediate survival and short-term advantage. No one was planning for the future because no one believed there would be much of a future to plan for. Grant the delegation's request, Zephyx decided. Let them go to human space. Maybe the humans will take pity on them. And if they don't? Then at least we will have tried everything we could think of. 3 weeks later, the joint delegation arrived at the edge of human space in a small diplomatic vessel. The ship was unarmed and carried representatives from 5 different species. They broadcast messages of friendship and requests for negotiation on all frequencies. For 2 days, they received no response. Then, on the 3rd day, a simple beacon activated near their position. The message it broadcast was longer than the usual automated responses, but not much more encouraging. The Terran Federation acknowledges the presence of the diplomatic vessel at our border. We appreciate your efforts and recognize the difficult circumstances facing your civilizations. However, we remain committed to our current path of independent development. We may consider limited contact in approximately 50 standard years, provided that the galactic community has developed sustainable solutions for its current challenges. Please respect our borders and focus on building stability within your own systems. Safe travels and good fortune to all. 50 years. For most of the alien species, that was a significant portion of their natural lifespans. For some, it was multiple generations. The humans were essentially saying that they would wait for the current galactic civilization to either fix itself or collapse completely before they would consider any kind of relationship. As the diplomatic ship prepared to leave, their sensors detected something at the very edge of their range. Massive vessels, clearly human in design, but unlike anything in the intelligence databases, were moving toward the galactic rim. The ships were huge, larger than any spacecraft the galaxy had ever seen, and there were dozens of them. The humans were not just ignoring the rest of the galaxy. They were leaving it behind entirely. While alien civilizations struggled with the collapse of interstellar cooperation, humanity was expanding into unexplored regions of space. They were building a new kind of civilization, one that did not depend on the chaotic politics and endless conflicts of the galactic community. The diplomatic vessel returned to Council space with their report. The humans were not coming back. They had moved beyond the need for the galactic community and were creating something entirely new. The galaxy that had taken their quiet competence for granted would have to learn to survive without them. Chairman Zephyx read the final report in his empty office. Outside his window, the stars continued to shine on a galaxy that was slowly forgetting how to reach them. The humans had walked away in silence, and in their absence, the greatest civilization in galactic history was collapsing under the weight of its own inability to cooperate.